Hello class, Matt McNeely here again with my persuasive presentation on voter identification requirements. I believe it should be mandatory to present a photo ID in order to vote. I believe we should push for legislation that requires American citizens to display a photo ID if they're going to vote. Voter fraud is too easy, and there are serious steps that we need to take to ensure that voter populace are who they claim to be whenever they go to vote. Over half of the voting population are not required to show photo ID, yet they're still afforded the opportunity to vote. I hope to persuade you that our current voting identification system is too lax. As Louisianians, we have to show a photo ID and sign our name to prove we are who we are before we're afforded that right. I've voted since I was 18 years old. I advocate for people to vote. I hold the right to vote as precious. To me, it's as precious as the First Amendment, the right to free speech. 52% of the nation is allowed to vote without proof of who they are. Now, many do place the blame on the cost of the ID, and if they're unable to afford one, it could be provided by the government. And the other hurdle is implementing a plan successfully of this size. It's just a matter of capital and logistics. Voting is a right afforded by the 15th Amendment of the United States Constitution, and is for all legal U.S. citizens, and a privilege that should be protected against any type of nefarious usage. There are roughly 301 million U.S. citizens, legal U.S. citizens, that are of age to vote. Of that, over 156 million of those do not have to show any form of ID to prove who they are before they vote. That's actually 12 million more people than inhabit the whole entire population of Russia. Let that sink in for a minute. Only 106 million are required to show some form of photo ID. Another 38 million are required to present a form of formal ID of identification of who they are. And 52% of the nation's voters do not have to even prove who they are before they vote. If there were a presidential election and it was split 48 to 52, that would be a big talk, because there's just such a small margin that separates the two. But yet when it comes to voting rights, that doesn't seem to bother people. Of those 300 million U.S. citizens that are able to vote, 215 million are already licensed drivers. So they should have a form of ID. That leaves us roughly 86 million Americans who would need some form of photo ID that if they don't already have it. If you were to go to the DMV and get a driver's license or an ID, it would cost you roughly $25. That's the average. But if you were to go online and buy one, you can get them for as low as $225. So if the federal government were to implement this program and they had to pay for them, and they bought 86 million at $2.25 versus $25 a piece, they would save themselves $1.4 billion. So that alone is a substantial savings, not to count what it would do for the business and the extra money that they would make. Implementing a program of this size would be no problem for the federal government. Since the New Deal, since Roosevelt's time with the New Deal, they implemented 47 programs in a short 6-year span. I mean, the government has handled large programs since the New Deal era with no problem. The government provides everyone with a Social Security card, just as we see in the graphic. They've issued over 453 million since the inception of the program. There's actually still 7 New Deal programs that are active now that help with securities, with banking, labor unions, Social Security. They provide all of those things still to this day. So they understand how to implement things on a large scale. So that should not be a problem, would not be a problem for the federal government. For over 90 years now, the American government has provided aid to its citizenry. And that's a hallmark of the American democratic system. The addition of an ID photo program for voting would just further solidify the goal of ensuring that each vote is equally qualified. Each voter is qualified to participate. The goal of any democracy is to ensure each voter is heard and that their vote carries an equal weight against all others. And that's on the graphic vote. Ensuring each vote is cast legally, it should concern Americans. It should concern you. Because voter fraud is the top story in every election cycle. You think about it. voter fraud, voter fraud. They're recounting, they're looking, they're suing one another, there are injunctions in court. Things are taking place because they're trying to disprove that the other individual had people that shouldn't vote that were voting. The simplicity, this is the thing that gets me. The simplicity of obtaining and showing your ID, how easy that is. It makes me question the motives of those who are opposed to this. Why would you be opposed to that? I believe that provisions need to be put in place to ensure that there is no voter fraud. And if my photo is me and it shows that that is me, why would that be a problem? Why should I need to sneak around to vote? Why shouldn't I present an ID and prove that it is me who is voting?